Welcome back to Hardball. President Obama is back in Louisiana today, surveying the damage done by the oil spill and talking to people who've been directly affected. Savannah Guthrie, my partner in crime, she joins me now from Grand Isle, Louisiana. And Savannah, I know that the president is still not done any on-site touring of Grand Isle, but he's gotten a big briefing in New Orleans. What did he learn and what's his tone?
Oh, wait till you hear the tone. The tape is just being hustled back right now, Chuck, but he really basically unloads on BP for more than 5 minutes with no provocation whatsoever. He kind of is going through, as we've seen so many times, after getting an update from state and local officials and Admiral Thad Allen through what he's learned, what the progress is, and then just starts laying into BP, this time for the fact that it's spent millions of dollars on a PR campaign, an image campaign, as he called it, and is prepared to spend billions on shareholder dividends at a time when you talk to people around here, they say they're being hassled by BP when they try to come back to make claims. The president, we've seen it before, not often, but we've seen it before when he has that tone of almost kind of a real disappointed parent in some ways, where he just kind of lays into him, and that is what we heard. And as I said, it went on and on today. Ask
and you shall receive, Savannah. Hang on a second. We're going to play a little bit of what President Obama said because we now just got the tape. Take a listen.
My understanding is that BP has contracted for $50 million worth of TV advertising to manage their image during the course of this disaster. In addition, there are reports that BP will be paying $10.5 billion, that's billion with a B, in dividend payments this quarter. Now, I don't have a problem with BP fulfilling its legal obligations, but I want BP to be very clear. They've got moral and legal obligations here in the Gulf for the damage that has been done.
Well, there it was, what you were just describing, Savannah, and you've been talking to a lot of locals down there. Their anger, you said that they're not angry with the president, but they are angry with BP.
Yeah, and I mean, I asked them again and again, who are you mad at? Who do you blame? They say BP. Look, they wanted the president to stay longer last week. They want him to stay longer today, frankly. They were hoping he was going to spend the night, but they're glad he's coming. I mean, and we heard that, and I'm sure you did too when you were here just last week. I mean, they really are just so happy that people are paying attention to their plight. So they're very angry at BP, particularly because of this issue of the claims. You know, a lot of them were able to go in initially, present sounds like a minimum amount of paperwork, but get a check for $5,000, and that's tided a lot of folks over for the last 45 days. But now those checks are running out, and now they're looking at mortgage payments or rent payments, groceries, and they're saying, what do I do? There's a lot of confusion around here. Well, where do I go? And that is what the president clearly heard loud and clear from state and local officials when he met with them this afternoon, and obviously it seeped out in his comments there. He really let BP have it.
All right. I know, Savannah, we got to let you go. You got to finish your reporting for nightly news later, and we'll check you there. Thanks very much.
Sure.
All right. John Hofmeister is the former president of Shell Oil, and he's author of Why We Hate the Oil Companies. And he joins us now. And Mr. Hofmeister, I've got to say, I want to play another bite from the president that actually has to do with offshore oil drilling and this moratorium, because I want to talk about that. Take a listen to that, and then we're going to talk about his comments about BP as well. But first, here's what he said about the drilling moratorium.
I made the decision to issue the moratorium. We knew that that would have an economic impact. But what I also knew is that there was no way that we can go about business as usual when we discovered that companies like BP, who had provided assurances that they had fail-safe, backup, redundant systems. In fact, not only didn't have fail-safe systems, but had no idea what to do when those fail-safe systems broke down.
Mr. Hofmeister, has not just BP, but the entire oil industry lost the benefit of the doubt now when it comes to this, and that this drilling, they can't expect the government to lift this drilling moratorium until they're convinced of these fail-safe backup plans?
Well, I think that was a political decision, not an operational decision. Somebody hit the panic button in the White House, in my opinion. Those 33 rigs that were shut down had each been inspected by the government after the blowout took place. All of them passed inspections. We have over 2,200 wells that have been safely drilled. They have operated fine, over 35,000 wells in the total Gulf. I think there's a historic precedent here that the industry does a pretty good job. This blowout is horrible, no question about it. But I don't know why it happened yet, and no one else does either. So rather than blanket the entire industry with the blame and shame that as if they are, doing things wrongly, why don't we find out what really happened on the Deepwater Horizon? Some 50,000 people could end up losing their jobs, and the 6-month moratorium is not going to be 6 months. It's going to be potentially years, because those rigs are not going to sit idle for 6 months in the Gulf. They're going to go somewhere else and be productive, and they're just going to disappear.
I understand that you're saying that these oil wells passed inspection post-blowout of the Deepwater Horizon, but everything, frankly, that we're learning about the Minerals Management Services Agency and what Interior was doing, these folks may not have been up, do we suddenly think they got good at inspecting after the blowout? I mean, I understand you're assuming that they probably got a little bit better and they were a little more careful, but considering the track record here, shouldn't there be some sort of pause?
I think we ought to have a fact-based analysis of what this so-called track record is. My personal experience, my hands-on experience, which is a little different than some of the people making blanket negative statements about this so-called cozy relationship, is quite different. I found professionalism and integrity. I found tough decision-making. I found the kind of government I would expect. And the culture that leads to the kind of abuse you're talking about, I didn't see that. But I'm just one person, and I didn't hear about it inside my company. So I think we may be using a wide paintbrush to paint everything, which may not be warranted.
All right, a couple other topics. You were the first person talking about it. I remember an interview you did with Brian Williams talking about the supertanker idea. This idea you bring all these supertankers in and basically just start vacuuming up the oil at the spot of the well. Now, we have since heard that this isn't like that issue in the Persian Gulf where you could sort of surround it and keep the oil in one place, that it's too dispersed. Do you buy that is the answer in this case, and what would be your plan B?
Well, plan B to me is the whole suck and salvage methodology of setting up barges with pumps on them in critical locations, unload the barges, separate the water from the oil, clean the water, put it back in the sea. The supertankers can be cruising back and forth. Supertankers cover a wide space. And if you have several of them back and forth, day and night, week in, week out, it'd be a whole lot better than watching that oil wash up on Pensacola Beach or in the marshes of Louisiana.
One other thing, BP's PR campaign. If you were BP, you would cancel these would you cancel this ad campaign pretty much immediately?
I don't believe in television advertising on your image when you got a serious problem. I think what you should be doing is sending your managers out into the communities and engaging with real people where they live, talking real person to person, and that will do more good. You could also bring cameras into the crisis room and show the nation what a job is being done. Or you could show how these robots actually work undersea. There's all kinds of things you could do to explain the situation rather than trying to paint a pretty picture.
Educational public relations there. All right, John Hofmeister, former president of Shell Oil, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your views.
Thank you.